Ohio State, big favorites of the weekend, just like Texas had been the biggest favorites of the college football playoffs so far. Biggest favorites of the weekend, Ohio State -5.5, taking on Texas in the Cotton Bowl. And, honestly, Texas cannot be afraid to get creative with Arch Manning in this game if Quinn Ewers is falling short or falling flat. I'll say that again. Texas cannot be afraid to get creative with Arch Manning, whether it's quarterback runs, you're putting him in for a drive. If Quinn's falling flat in the first half or on the first few drives, Steve Sark cannot be afraid to pull Arch Manning into that game. I know Arch might not be taking all of the first team snaps like you want him to be, and this has been Quinn's offense to run. But when you have inexcusable performances like in the second half against Georgia in the SEC title game, really that whole game, right? Arch Manning gets 2 snaps. One of them, he didn't even touch the ball. It was a direct snap through the legs, which was a nice play to convert for the down, no doubt about it. But Arch Manning is a weapon. And I'm not saying he has to be the end-all, be-all in this, but I really believe if Sark does come out and possibly does not really get creative in some way with Arch Manning or get creative with that offense, this Ohio State defense and even just this team and Ryan Day, who is foaming at the mouth as the best team left in college football, they're going to eat them absolutely alive. And we've seen spurts of Quinn Ewers this year to where he's, not looked great down the stretch or, might have thrown for a ton of yards, but they might be garbage yards or garbage points at a certain point. And I'm not crapping on Sark, Texas, Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning, none of that. But Steve Sarkisian cannot be afraid to take it to that extra aspect in this game. I think the biggest question looming over this one with Ohio State being, 5.5-point favorites is, can they continue to dominate as they did in the last 2 rounds? I mean, absolutely snuffing Tennessee out for everything they were worth. Of course, rolling through Oregon, the most impressive win of the year, probably by any college football team thus far. And the dominance has just been absolutely undeniable. Again, Ohio State, who can stop them? Who's going to stop Ohio State right now? They literally are the best team left in college football. Look, anybody's got as good a chance as Ohio State, but I feel like Ohio State is in that separate, tier 1, S tier type of team right now. When you come out and dominate the way that you do in the first round after losing to Michigan, which again was the best thing to happen to them before these playoffs started. Ryan Day lit a fire under these guys' asses. Will Howard, Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, Emeka Ibuka, Jeremiah Smith, that offensive line, Caleb Downs on the defense. These dudes are on fire. And I just really don't know if Texas is going to be able to stop this Ohio State team as they've been popping off in the last couple of rounds. And I think we have pretty comparable rosters on both sides of the ball as well. You look at Ohio State again, Will Howard, Judkins, Travion Henderson. You've got Jeremiah Smith, who just lit Oregon up for almost 200 and 2 touchdowns. He did light them up for 2 touchdowns in the first half and almost 200 yards on the game on just 7 catches. God forbid if you get Emeka Ibuka involved and, even more of Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. Ryan Day has, again, the most expensive roster in college football, the most talented team and roster in the country. So it should be able to outweigh Texas' side of the ball. And, again, Caleb Downs on the defensive side. We know what the defensive line at Ohio State, the Ohio State University, represents. You take a look at the Texas Longhorns. Again, you got Quinn, you got Arch Manning, you got Wisner, you got Blue. I think Texas's secondary in this game, Texas's wide receiver room in this game could really be the difference maker because you can argue it's one of the best in the country. I mean, both of these wide receiver rooms are very elite. You got Gunnar Helm, who's one of the best, if not the best tight end in college football. You've got You've got Golden, you've got Bolden, and you've got Isaiah Bond. That is insane speed in the wide receiver room, not to mention the backs that you have as well. Of course, we have Michael Taft on the defensive side of the ball. We've seen that defensive line, that front 7 of Texas. So both of these rosters are extremely comparable. And I think if Texas's wide receivers can find a gap in that Ohio State secondary, Texas has a chance to take this one away. I don't think they will. I'll give you the score prediction in just a second. Another similar coaching matchup, you ask yourself, when's the last time you feel like Ohio State had a big win besides with Oregon this season? A real meaningful one that you feel like impacted the season to give them the type of hype like they have now, because we've seen them 4 straight losses to Michigan in the regular season, still trying to find their way, to get to that national championship of the CFP. Of course, they win it back in 2014. They go to the Natty again with Justin Fields, and then you have Steve Sarkisian, who has started to emerge. We see Texas come out of the Big 12. We see them playing in the semifinals last year. They're in the semifinals again this year. We remember them last year against Washington, just kind of giving it everything they had. And, unfortunately, they weren't able to make it happen. But again, I feel like this coaching matchup has elite coaches. The last coaching matchup in the Orange Bowl, it has great coaches. I wouldn't say elite. Those coaches are great. I would give a slight nod to Marcus Freeman over James Franklin for that Georgia win. And again, this is another defensive showdown when you look at Ohio State versus Texas. Ohio State being the second best, if not the best defense left in college football. And maybe me as a biased Georgia fan, I'm just scarred by the way that they did my Bulldogs last week. And again, when you lead the country in takeaways and you by far and away lead the country in points off takeaways, it's very hard to push back against that. And we know what Texas has been all year as well. They have one of the top rated defenses. We know what they bring to the table in the front seven. But again, I don't see anybody stopping. Good to see you in the chat. Really appreciate you jumping in. Yeah, that part right there. Ohio State, I don't see them being stopped by Texas. It could get ugly. I think where Texas has earned some respect the last couple of weeks. You might not like if you're a Texas or even not a Texas fan the way that they're able to slip away against Arizona State. But I will take Ohio State to win this one 28-21 with an Ohio State and Notre Dame national championship. That will be on Monday, January 20th in Atlanta, Georgia. We will hold the predictions until the following week. That way we can get them out to you